Have you ever wondered why Capricorn seems to carry a weight that no other sign supports? Why your presence, silent and firm, provokes respect, and sometimes even fear? Capricorn is not just about discipline or success. There is something deeper, something dark, sealed millennia, hidden among the veils of traditional astrology. According to Edgar Cayce, the greatest prophet of the last century, the natives of Capricorn were marked with an energy that goes beyond human understanding, a forbidden energy, a silent mission, a spiritual shadow that only truly chosen can stand. Capricorn carries old codes. It is the sign that moves between visible and invisible worlds. This is not just ambition, it is spiritual survival. Every challenge, every fall, every obstacle, it is a reminder that your soul has been forged for something few are ready to understand. Cayce said some signs are guardians, and Capricorn keeps portals, transformation portals, rebirth, pain, and revelation. And that's why your energy may seem heavy, dense, even dark, because it carries what others reject. What we will reveal in this video is not in ordinary horoscopes. These are hidden truths, fragments of a forgotten prophecy. If you are Capricorn, or know someone who is, get ready. This content did not come to you by chance. The truth that is about to be unveiled can completely change the way you see your destiny, your challenges, and your invisible strength. But before revealing what Cayce has written about this misunderstood sign, you need to know what this energy represents, where it comes from, and why so many are afraid of it. If at some point in your life you have felt that you carry something you can't explain, an invisible weight, and responsibility that seems not to be yours but that accompanies you from an early age, so this video was made exactly for you. And if you are Capricorn, or live with someone from this sign, leave your comment now. Write, "I carry this energy," because this simple act of writing becomes a recognition ritual, a spiritual seal that confirms what deep down your soul already knew. Every detail we will reveal here has been carefully studied and interpreted from the visions of Edgar Cayce, the prophet who revealed secrets about the signs and their connections with higher spiritual plans. Capricorn, according to him, did not come into the world to live like others. It was shaped by dense energies, designed to go through doors that many avoid even looking. Therefore, it is essential that you remain until the end, because what we will explain can clarify many things you have lived, and perhaps never understood. This content is not just about astrology. It's about awakening, about remembering who you are and why you feel what you feel. And so, if you feel that this message is touching you somehow, click like now. This helps video reach other people who also need this revelation. And of course, subscribe to the channel, because Capricorn's spiritual journey is just the beginning. Each sign carries a mission, but not all were sealed with the energy of hidden transformation. And this you need to understand before you consume you. Do you feel you carry an invisible burden, as if it had to be strong until it is broken inside, as if there was a force within you that forces you to continue, even when everything inside screams for rest? This feeling is neither delirium nor exaggeration. It's real. And if you are Capricorn, or have this sign in important points of your map, perhaps this silent pain, this internal charge, this existential tiredness, have been part of your journey ever, and the spiritual astrology that few know explains why it in depth. Capricorn is not just the sign of responsibility. He is the guardian of the limit between the visible and the invisible. It represents time, karma, the structure that sustains the invisible behind the matter. Therefore, many Capricorns live a life with a feeling of heavy, as if they carry a destination they have not chosen. And often that is exactly that. Capricorn is the sign of those who come to pay collective debts, to rearrange chaos, to put order where there is disorder, even if it costs your own peace. This is a spiritual truth that not everyone is ready to accept, but that Edgar Cayce, the dormant prophet, had already revealed. According to Cayce, the Capricorns were marked with an ancestral energy associated with reconstruction after large falls. They are old souls who in past lives were in leadership positions but also made deep errors, and in this life return to correct, restructure, guide. So they feel so much weight, so they can't simply relax. There is a spiritual programming within Capricorn that requires constant vigilance, excellence, domain. And even if this is not said in conventional horoscopes, the Capricorn soul knows deep down, that it is here for something greater. But this spiritual greatness does not come without costs. From an early age, Capricorn is faced with heavy obstacles. They are the ones who mature ahead of time, who take care of others while they are still children inside. It is those who carry silent family trauma, who become the pillars of the house without ever being prepared. They feel they cannot fail, who do not have the right to make mistakes. That cannot be vulnerable, and that makes them strong and lonely, because the firmer it shows out, the more the world forgets that there is a human being in pieces inside. This invisible armor that Capricorn wears, often without realizing it, is one of the most painful and sacred marks of his spiritual path. It is not weakness to feel tired. It is not weakness to doubt. It is not weakness to cry hidden. All of this is part of the deep transformation that Capricorn is intended to live, because only those who dive into pain with conscience can rebuild something true from it. And this is the true gift of this sign, rebuilding. Even when everything already seems lost, even when no one believes anymore, Capricorn believes and reconstructs, even alone, even in silence. What Edgar Cayce reveals is that this journey is not a punishment, but a mission. Capricorns were prepared, even before being born, to deal with more dense frequencies of human experience. That is why many feel displaced in the world, as if they did not fully belong to the lightness of everyday life. And in fact, they do not belong. Capricorn belongs to the deep layers, what is beyond the surface. While other signs shine in the light, Capricorn is what enters the darkness and returns from there wisely. But this is not always recognized. Often his journey is invisible in the eyes of others. Only you know how much it has already fallen. Only you know how many times you had to get up alone. Only you understand what it is to be surrounded by people, and yet feel a kind of loneliness that no one can explain. And that can hurt, of course, but it also arouses a force that few signs have. Capricorn is not a sign for the weak. And if you are of Capricorn, or there is someone very close as it is, you may have realized that these people seem to live as if they had an armor, but inside there is an old, exhausted heart, full of stories that have not yet been told. Stories that involve overcoming, rebirth, silent faith. Stories that no one sees, but the universe recognizes. And so, the spiritual protection that involves Capricorn is not noisy, not spectacular. It is firm, constant, ancestral. It's a silent angel walking alongside, acting behind the scenes. So if all this is making sense to you, write in the comments right now, I carry this energy. Or, if you prefer something deeper, I was shaped in pain to rebuild the invisible. This is not just a sentence, it is an activation, a public recognition of your journey. And if you got here, it's because you feel, you know, and maybe, only maybe, the most important part is yet to come. Because understanding what Edgar Cayce revealed about Capricorn is just the beginning. There are still hidden truths that need to be said. This is why many Capricorns, even without understanding exactly why, feel early on that they cannot simply live as others live. There is a silent requirement, an expectation that seems to come from the universe, not from society, an inner voice that constantly whispers, you can't fail. But this pressure, which for some would be unbearable, in Capricorn, turns into resistance. Not because he wants, but because his soul has already been trained to deal with denser frequencies, longer challenges, and battles no one sees. It is as if there was an invisible contract signed before birth, a spiritual pact that marks Capricornians as sentries of the hidden structure of life. This structure, however, is not just made of matter, work, and discipline. It is made up of spiritual energy, ancestral memories, pains that come from entire lineages and, for some, cosmic reason, find rest and transmutation within the sons of Capricorn. This is why these people often become the pillars of dysfunctional families, those who hold without complaining, those who hear without being heard, those who heal, even when no one realizes that they are also injured. And all this is part of the spiritual function of this sign, which was called not to shine on the stage of life, but to maintain the structure that sustains the whole spectacle, a silent mission, invisible, but absolutely necessary. There is something deeply sacred in the way Capricorn read over time. He doesn't run, he watches. It calculates, he waits, because his sense of destiny is so tuned that even when it seems paralyzed, he is aligning himself with something much bigger. And this something is the time of the soul. While the world vibrates in anxiety, urgency, and distraction, Capricorn accesses a much older frequency, connected to the cosmic laws that govern the rebirth of matter. That's why he gets old but rejuvenates over time. This is why many Capricorns flourish late, because your seed was not born to ordinary stations. It was planted in the winter of the soul, and when it blooms, it is to last. This dense, deep, dark energy, as some classify it, is not evil. She is initiatory. It provokes. She deconstructs. She presses for evolution. And not everyone supports it. Many move away from Capricorn by finding them cold, too rational, distant. But what few understand is that behind this breastplate there is a soul that feels everything, absolutely everything with intensity. But he has learned, by spiritual survival, not to allow himself to crumble. Because you know that crumble, many fall together. And it is at this point that Capricorn shows his true greatness, in the ability to endure without bursting, to contain the chaos, to turn pressure into structure. And here comes the most disturbing revelation that Edgar Cayce left. According to him, the Capricornians are guardians of a sealed energy, something that cannot be activated in anyone, something that requires spiritual maturity, emotional mastery, and a deep alignment with soul mission. And when this energy is activated, Capricorn operates as a collective transformation agent. It becomes a mirror for others, a power channel that bothers, that confronts, but transforms. But care must be taken, as this activation can also lead to shadow. The same energy it builds can also paralyze. The same force that structure can also harden. The same gift it raises can isolate. And so the balance is vital. Capricorn must remember that, despite his ancestral strength, he is still human, still feels. It still needs affection, connection, and reception. But how to ask that if the world expects only his efficiency? How to open if you have always been taught to close? These are the questions that echo within many Capricorns. And maybe you, who are listening now, are recognizing yourself. You may never have talked about it to anyone, but you felt that someone understood you when we described this trajectory. Because that is the truth. Capricorn is misunderstood, often judged by what does not express, and rarely valued by the invisible structure it offers the world. But this energy, when accepting consciously, becomes a silent power that shapes realities. So if you have gotten here, and all this is vibrating inside you as an old echo, this is the time to make it visible. Write in the comments, "I carry this energy." Declare it. Say this seal. Or if you felt deeply this spiritual connection with what we said, write, "I accept my essence." These words are not just phrases. They are codes of spiritual activation. These are ways to confirm that you heard the call, that you recognize the mission. And when we say that Capricorn is the guardian of the gate between the worlds, we are not talking about a beautiful symbolism or any spiritual metaphor. We are talking about a cosmic code that acts in silence, of an energetic position that few souls accept to occupy before incarnating. Capricorn did not come to shine under artificial lights, nor to feed on ephemeral applause. He came to keep standing structures. He came to support the crossing between what was and what it will be. And this spiritual mission, as silent as it is deep, explains why so many Capricorn feel lonely even surrounded by people. Why deep down, there is always a feeling that they are fulfilling something that goes beyond logic, routine, what others call life. His soul, old as the first mountains, does not recognize the modern world as home. There is an inexplicable longing in Capricorn, a feeling that something has been left behind, or that something still needs to be fulfilled before it can finally rest. And that's exactly that. Capricorn does not live for immediate pleasure. He lives for a purpose, and this purpose has to do with redemption, with the reorder of past failures, with the fulfillment of a silent oath that, even without rationally remembering, vibrates in his energy field as a constant reminder, you have something to fulfill. So when things go wrong, Capricorn does not give up. It strengthens itself. And even if it falls, even if it cry alone, even if you want to disappear, it continues. Because there is something inside him that doesn't stop him. A spiritual compass that always points to construction O, for evolution, for the return to the cosmic order. Many think Capricorn is cold, calculating, distant, But what few know is that this apparent coldness is a protection, a shield that keeps a soul that feels too much, that has already suffered too much, who has seen and lived things that cannot explain, but recognizes in the eyes of others who also carry this invisible burden. And so when Capricorn loves, he loves with all the soul, but it does not demonstrate how the others. Your love is firm, it is presence, it is protection, and perhaps this is the rarest love of all, the one who builds himself in silence, commitment, spiritual loyalty. Because when Capricorn connects to someone, he is not just about the emotional plane. It connects in soul, in destination, on a shared mission. And so, when it is disappointed, it is as if something broke inside, not only in relation to the other but in relation to the purpose he believed to divide. But still, he continues. Capricorn always continues, because it does not seek validation. It does not live waiting for recognition. He knows, even if he cannot verbalize, that his life has a spiritual purpose, that their falls were not accidents, but parts of deeper training, and that every pain, every loneliness, every effort no one has seen, it was observed by higher forces, because the eyes of the world can ignore, but the universe never forgets the effort of a soul that fulfills its mission in silence. This mission, however, is loaded with contrasts. At times, Capricorn feels extremely strong, unbreakable. In others, he feels he won't bear another day. And this oscillation is not a sign of weakness, but part of the way itself. The Capricorn soul lives among worlds, between plans, and this spiritual sensitivity makes it, at the same time, a channel of wisdom and the field of conflict. But it is in this crossing, between light and shadow, between matter and spirit, that Capricorn activates his power, not the power it imposes, but the power that transforms without being perceived, the power that reconstructs, even without applause, which sustains, even when everything around is ruining. And when Edgar Cayce spoke about Capricorn, he was not just describing astrological characteristics, he was revealing a spiritual position, a cosmic designation. He said that certain souls came to the world not to be understood, but to perform the impossible. And among these souls were the Capricorn, chosen to deal with the shadows, not to be consumed by them, but to illuminate them with solid structures, to show that true spirituality is not only made of light, but of discipline, constancy, sacred responsibility. Therefore, Capricorn, even when discrediting, follows. Even when everything inside screams, he shuts up and does, because you know there is something bigger happening. Something that goes beyond appearances, something that needs to be fulfilled before you can rest. And maybe now you are realizing that everything that has lived here has not been in vain, that your pain, your coldness, your strength, your loneliness, your seriousness were just layers of a much greater mission, a mission that now begins to be understood, and that changes everything. It changes the way you look at you, changes the value of your scars. It changes even how you see your own silences. Because where the world sees absence, the universe sees preparation. And that's why you now need to declare, write in the comments, I accept my essence, if this spiritual call has resonated with your story. Or comment, I carry this energy, if deep down you know all this is about you, that this mission, this crossing, this silent pain, is exactly your journey. And most importantly, don't keep it just for you. Share with someone of Capricorn who needs to remember their strength. Capricorn suffers silent, and this silence is not just the absence of words, it is its own language, a deep form of spiritual resistance. From an early age, he learns that there is no room for weaknesses, that crying too much can be a sign of vulnerability, which depends on others is dangerous. It is not that he chose this path, it is that somehow the way chose him. There is something in the eyes of a Capricorn child who reveals the weight she already carries, even without knowing how to put in words. And this weight accumulates, turning into strength, but also is isolation. While others ask for help, Capricorn is silent. While others scream, he takes a deep breath and continues. This characteristic, so striking silence, over time becomes a kind of spiritual armor. He does not speak because he feels he will not be understood. He does not ask why he has learned that most of the time he will have to solve alone. And when finally finds someone willing to listen, it's too late. He got used to the absence, no, with the emptiness. Many confuse this silence with coldness, and are wrong. What is behind this behavior is a deeply complex emotional system, built to protect something precious, an extremely sensitive soul that was called to missions that most would never accept. Capricorn becomes an expert in supporting what would be unbearable for others. It is those people who hold the world on their shoulders without showing tiredness, that organize the lives of others while life itself is crumbling inside, which are remembered by force, but almost never by the pain that this force requires. Because there is an often unconscious belief that showing what he feels can shake the structure he himself created, and as someone who sees himself as a pillar, as support, he does not allow himself to collapse, even when everything inside begs for relief. And it is precisely at this point that the spiritual trials of Capricorn become more intense, because in addition to carrying concrete responsibilities, work, family, commitments, it carries invisible pressure, not to disappoint, not to fall, always having to prove that it is capable. But no one asks how much it costs. No one asks if he still holds on. No one asks how your heart is. Capricorn learns to smile on the outside as the chest is at war, learns to be efficient as the soul bleeds in silence. Capricorn's silence is sacred. He is not empty. He is ritual. It is a shield. It is channeling. It is the way the ancient soul reorganizes inside to remain firm. On many nights, the Capricorn lies in bed with exhausted body and boiling mind, trying to understand where so much charge comes from, because it never feels that it is doing enough. Why inner peace is always postponed. And yet the next day he gets up, as if there was a force majeure that pushes him to the world again. And there are. This strength is spiritual. It is karmic. It is part of the contract that his soul accepted before reincarnating. It is also this silence that makes few really know the true Capricorn, because on the outside it may seem pragmatic, rational, distant, but inside there is a storm. There are unnamed dreams, camouflaged fears, deep desires to be welcomed but are never expressed with words. He observes the world at a distance, trusts slowly, loves with reservations, because every bond for him is serious. Each word given is promise, and every mistake, it is a burden that it imposes itself as if it were your fault, even when it is not. The deepest of all this is that Capricorn rarely revolts against this destiny. He questions, yes, but deep down, accept, because there is something in its essence that recognizes that these trials have a meaning, that this silence has a function, that this weight, no matter how much, is aligned with something much bigger. And that's why, even when he doesn't understand, he continues. Even without answers, he builds. Even without applause, he delivers. Capricorn does not need to be understood to continue to be who it is. He knows that his mission does not depend on the approval of others. She is internal, spiritual, old, and it was not made to be easy. And now, if all this has touched somewhere in your story, I want to invite you to a small ritual. Right here in the comments, this is about me. Say out loud, my pain has purpose. And if you felt this description as if you were reading your own inner mirror, declare, I accept my silence as strength. These words are not just phrases thrown into the wind. They are spiritual stamps. They activate memories. They confirm that you recognize your journey and honor what has come to live on this plan. Don't keep it just for you. Capricorn may be lonely, but it was never made to be invisible. Your strength needs to be seen. Your silence needs to be honored. And your story is still being written. Few know, but when Edgar Cayce went into trance and channeled spiritual messages that would change the way we see the signs, he mentioned Capricorn with a rare intensity. Cayce did not speak of the sign as a simple astrological configuration, but as an energy seal, a specific spiritual frequency, loaded, dense, demanding, but absolutely necessary for the balance of the earthly plane. He said that Capricorn is the sign of karmic transmutation, and that in each life where this energy manifests itself hard, the spirit is being convened to do an invisible, deep and decisive work. According to him, where there is shadow, there is a portal, and Capricorn is the only one who can cross this portal without getting lost. This revelation, dictated by one of the greatest mystical channels of the last century, confirms something that thousands of Capricorns feel, but cannot name. The feeling that they were born to deal with what others avoid. There is a constant call to come in where it hurts, where no one wants to go, where chaos settles down. And contrary to what many think, Capricorn does not. It is attracted to darkness. He only recognizes that this is where his mission awaits him. Cayce said that these souls are trained in higher planes, even before they are born, to support and transform the collective. Weight that accumulates generation after generation. They are spirits with rare resistance, with spiritual discipline, with ancestral firmness. They are not just to solve their own karmas, but to clean and rebuild what was corrupted in entire strains. And that's why so many Capricorns feel a weight that can't explain. They are living not only their pains, but absorbing the pains of their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and in some cases, even past lives. Cayce said that Capricorn keeps the keys of portals that open only in times of crisis. Portals that lead to such profound transformations that those who pass them will never be the same. But to open them, it takes strength, faith, and firmness of purpose. And this is what the universe sees in the children of this sign: the ability to cross the invisible with silent courage, the ability to resist when everything inside screams to stop, the ability to keep standing spiritual structures that, if they ruined, would drag multitudes. What Cayce reveals goes far beyond conventional astrology. He speaks of Capricorn as an incarnate consciousness that acts on multiple plans: physical, emotional, energetic, and spiritual. It associates this energy with the archetype of the hidden master, of the one who teaches without seeming to teach, of the one who guides only by example, he who is discreet, but who carries in himself a spiritual authority that imposes respect without effort. And that's why many Capricornians are seen as older than they really are, because the soul that inhabits this body has lived enough not to be enchanted by the superficial, and it has suffered enough to know that the true power makes no noise. This prophecy, therefore, was not made to massage egos. She doesn't say Capricorn is better. He says he was prepared, and with preparation comes responsibility, come charge, come pain, but it also comes purpose, redemption, and liberation. Cayce described that when Capricorn accesses his true, spiritual nature, he becomes a pillar of light in the midst of the storm. He doesn't try to save everyone. He just remains firm, and so everything around reorganizes. He doesn't have to prove himself, because your energy is silently magnetic, because it represents the link between karma and healing, between falling and reconstruction, between shadow and wisdom. And this role is not for anyone. That is why Capricorn's life is never light. It is never simple. It is never fast. She is deep, slow, carved over time, and the more he accepts this, the more his spirit aligns with what he came to. Cayce said that Capricorn is the one who builds for the invisible, and that means that his greatest works may never be applauded, but the universe will recognize them, because he is not here to gain recognition, but to fulfill fate. And that changes everything. It changes the way you look at your own history, your failures, your silences, your repetitions. Perhaps all this was part of the preparation. If you feel that your life has been too difficult, with evidence that seems greater than your strength, know that this is not punishment. It is called, it is adjustment, it is mission. And if you are still standing, even after everything you have ever lived, it is not a coincidence either. It is confirmation. It is spiritual seal. And now, after hearing this revelation that Cayce has registered about your sign, write in the comments, "I am the pillar between the worlds." Or if you felt this truth activate something inside you, write, "I carry the call of the invisible." These sentences are more than words. They seal the spiritual consciousness that has been vibrating in you for a long time. And when writing, you not only recognize yourself, you activate the next step of your journey. And what comes next requires even more consciousness. But there is something that needs to be said, and you may never have heard so clearly. There is a silent risk, a fine line that separates the awake Capricorn from the sleeping Capricorn. And this risk is not in the outside world. He lives inside. It is subtle, but relentless. When Capricorn begins to deny his essence, when he begins to suffocate his sensitivity in the name of a rigid ideal of strength, when he abandons his spirituality to protect himself with sterile rationality, he does not protect himself. He leaves himself. And in this shutdown, he begins to lose his own inner shine. It becomes cold, skeptical, disconnected from the sources that always guided him in silence. It is at this point that the spiritual danger settles in, for by denying his soul, Capricorn no longer fulfills his hidden mission. He leaves the call that brought him here, and even without realizing it, it begins to build such thick walls around you that even your guides, spiritual, your silent angels, retreat. They do not move away from punishment. They move away because the channel closes, and a closed channel cannot be directed. A hardened heart cannot feel the signs. A mind that only seeks control loses the wisdom that comes from the invisible. And this is how Capricorn, when denying his spiritual side, becomes a prisoner of himself. He begins to think he needs to control everything. Who needs to win alone? Who needs to prove it all the time, which depends on nothing and no one? But this is not the force of Capricorn. This is your shadow, trying to protect yourself from unique wounds. The true strength of the Capricorn is precisely in connecting with the superior purpose, with the mission of the soul, with the certainty that there is an invisible flow organizing all things, including their falls, including your failures, even the moments when he thought he couldn't stand it anymore. Capricorn was made to lead, yes, but not with rigidity, with wisdom, with soft firmness, with spiritual discernment. The shadow of Capricorn is hard, and she doesn't appear at once. It grows slowly, like armor that seemed useful at first, but over time begins to suffocate. It is the tiredness that does not pass. It is the spiritual apathy. It is disbelief in everything that cannot be measured. It is the coldness in the eyes. It is the constant haste, the inhuman requirement, excessive control. And all this starts when he moves away from himself. When you forget that, behind responsibility, there is a soul you feel, that pulsates. Who needs silence to hear his own angels? That needs humility to reconnect with the light. And maybe you have already felt it. Maybe you're feeling now. The feeling that he lost his direction, even though he was on the right way. The feeling that something is missing, even doing everything that needs to be done. It is the call of the soul trying to cross the rigidity of the mind. It is the spiritual mission asking for passage. It is your true self trying to emerge under the layers you were creating to survive. But surviving is not the same as living, and living without soul is just repeating empty movements. Capricorn needs to remember that his greatness is not only in what he builds in the outside world, it is mainly in the way it builds its relationship with the invisible world, the world of foreboding, dreams, intuitions, truths that are not explained but feel. When reconnecting with this, the Capricorn is reborn, and everything flows again. The angels speak again, the doors open again, the clarity returns. And more than that, he begins to remember that he was never alone. He had only moved away from his essence. But this reconnection requires courage, because it requires looking inside, review old wounds, face the void that was pushed under the productivity rug, requires stopping, silence, to hear, and that to Capricorn may seem the biggest challenges, but it is also the beginning of healing, the healing of the tired spirit, the healing of the rigid soul, healing of the heart that hits the rhythm of cosmic cycles, not the pressure of the world. When Capricorn accepts this, he becomes real invincible, not because it dominates everything, but because it aligns itself to what never fails, destiny itself. And if you have come here feeling that this message has been made for you, comment now. This battle is mine. If you recognized yourself in this silent shadow that seems to grow unnoticed, write in the comments, I reconnect with my essence. And he felt a shiver at some point in the video, a confirmation that came without logical explanation. Just feel and write, the angels have heard me again. These words are not just interactions. They are spiritual statements. They are stamps of reactivation. And when you declare, you move. And what comes now requires you to be awake. Capricorn is the soul sent to lift what was destroyed, not out of vanity, not for a desire for recognition, but because there is a silent call that never siles within it. While many run away from chaos, Capricorn walks to him. While the world collapses in screams and confusion, he watches in silence, measures the rubble, calculates the boundaries, and gradually begins the reconstruction. It is as if every Capricorn knew, albeit unconsciously, that destruction is part of the plan, but that someone needs to have the courage to rebuild, and that someone almost always is him. There is something deeply sacred in the way Capricorn faces responsibility. He does not see as weight, but as a mission, not as punishment, but as a purpose. He carries, but carries with dignity. It supports, yes, but with a force that is not explained, it just feels. There are times when the pain is true, but don't break it, because its root is firm in something bigger. Capricorn was born to resist where others give up, to shape what is still just chaos, to find meaning in a which seems irreversible. And when everyone thinks it is over, that's when he starts. Your presence in the world is a spiritual anchor, a reminder that not everything needs to be shouted. Not every force is noise. Not every power needs to appear. Capricorn is the kind of soul that works behind the scenes of the invisible. He does not announce that he will act. He simply acts. When everything seems to have collapsed, it is he who appears with plans, strategies, and structures. And the most beautiful of all this is that Capricorn does not do to be seen. Do it because you know that if you don't, no one will do. And this sense of mission is what makes it so great, even in silence. Capricorn's silence is God's echo in work. Not a God of shows, of easy promises, but a God of structure, of patience, of cycles, of purpose. And when Capricorn silences, it is not absence. It is preparation. It is listening. It is alignment with the forces that operate beyond the visible. He hears the time. He feels what was not said. He presents what is coming. And when it acts, it's like an invisible earthquake that reorganizes everything around. No one understands where this strength came from. No one sees where this idea came from. But there he is, doing what needs to be done. No spotlight, without audience. This is why Capricorn's suffering is never in vain. Because every tear that falls secret, every effort that no one notices, every sacrifice he makes for those who do not always deserve, all of this turns into spiritual baggage, in silent wisdom, in legacy that is, even when he already left. He is the kind of soul that plants trees, even knowing that he may never rest in their shadow. But plants, anyway, because you know the world needs these roots, and because it feels that that's what came for. And now, you may understand why you have so many times feel so alone. Why do you seem to carry the world on your back? Because it looks like your journey is heavier than others. It is because you are not here to live an ordinary life. You were sent to rebuild, to guide, to support. And no matter how many times you have fallen, if you are still here, it's because your mission is not over. Because there is something in you that the universe still needs. And this strength, this call, this pain transformed towards, this is exactly what makes you a channel of spiritual reconstruction. So if this video resonated with your soul, if you felt that each word was like a forgotten memory coming back, write in the comments, "I carry this energy." Say true, say hard, because these words are more than interaction. They are a seal, a milestone, a confirmation that you recognize yourself. And if you know someone of Capricorn who needs to remember the strength he carries, share this video, because sometimes all that an old spirit needs is to be remembered of who he really is. If you got here, it is because this message has played something deep inside you, and that doesn't happen by chance. If this journey made sense to you, if you felt that each word seemed to speak directly to your soul, then this channel is also your space. Here, each video is a portal, a memory of what your essence already knows. So now, take a deep breath and leave your mark here. Comment, "I recognize my call." This is not just a comment, it is a seal of those who heard to the end, who honors his spiritual mission. If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this moment. Click the registration button right now. Activate the bell so as not to lose the next revelation portals. And if this video made you feel something true, leave your like now. It helps the content to achieve more souls than they need, to awaken. And don't stop here. The next video is appearing on the left side of the screen. Click on it now and continues the journey. There you will discover the true Aquarium mission and why it was chosen to open the paths of the invisible. You are ready. We see each other there.